Kyle here with Blooming Earth Studios, bringing you a new tutorial going over animating. So today we're going to go ahead and look at the basics for character animation. Now, if you look at what I have set up here, you may be thinking this is just a ball. It's not really a character, but you would be quite wrong. See, nearly all characters will come down to really just basic shapes, and the ball is the simplest of all of them. It's got the ability to stretch, squash, bounce up and down. So really we can make a character out of really just about anything. I mean, just take a look at Pixar. Some of their most simple animations have been the Luxo lamp just bouncing on a ball. So why don't we go ahead and get into this, and we can go ahead and just start looking at what it is that we have here. Now, when I'm animating, I actually use two screens, but because I can't record that right now, we're going to go ahead and just leave on this one screen here. Now, I do not use four view panels in animating typically. I'll usually use actually two, a camera view and a general perspective view, and I'll get into those in just a second. And I'll have a third panel, usually on a separate screen, for my graph editor and reference video. But for right now, we're not going to go ahead and use the reference video. So why don't we just set up our interface. I'm going to pull that off to the side, and I'm going to come over here to go to Panels. I'm going to go to Panel, Graph Editor. And this we will get into in a little bit, but this is going to be something that you're going to spend a lot of time looking at, especially later. And we'll get into all of our abilities here momentarily. So let's go ahead and set ourselves up looking at how we're going to be doing this. So let's come over and create a new camera, and I'm going to press W so we can move it. And let's come over here to this one, go to Panels, and let's go to Perspective Camera 1. So now this is what we're going to be looking at. And for the purposes that we're using, we're going to just go ahead and move up. And nice little tidbit to know, if you press T while you have the camera selected, it will allow you to move not only the position of the camera, but also where the camera is focusing at, which is a lot easier than trying to just control the rotations of the camera itself if you're doing a simple camera move. So I'm gonna back this up a little bit, get a little bit more space, and I think that's pretty good. Normally I would take off this grid here, but for our purposes now, just so that we have something to look at as a floor, I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Now, I am using the iAnimate ball. iAnimate's a wonderful school for animation, and I would recommend using or going to them if you can. But if you can't, that's fine too. They just have a lot of really good rigs, a lot of really good instructors. So let's begin. So to begin with, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go through this area. This is where we can select whatever we want to be able to select, and for the moment I only want to be able to select the NURBS curves, which are our controllers. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect everything else. So now if I were to select the ball, I can't actually select the ball. I can only select the controllers themselves. And why don't we go ahead and take a look at our controllers real quick. We've got our master controller, which will allow us to move the entire object wherever we want. We typically only want to use the master controller at the very beginning, setting the initial position where our character is going to be. And after that, we don't want to touch it, ever. It can do a lot of weird things, so for now, we're just going to leave that as it is. We can then select this controller, and this is our general control. From here we can move it, bouncing it up and down, left, right, whatever we want. And this controller, our interior, is our stretch and squash. Now, you may notice that when we move this, it doesn't do really anything. We can rotate it, and nothing seems to be happening. However, if we come over here to our channel box, we can see that we have some values for volume preservation as well as squash and stretch. And if you notice, as I scroll through the squash and stretch, it gets, well, squashed and stretched. So this can be useful much later on. So let's go over some more of the basics here. If we look down here, this is our timeline, and this is where we're going to be doing a lot of work as well. For the purpose of this, we're going to go ahead and make this let's make it a 48 frame, so 2-second long animation, because we're working in 24 frames per second. And we're going to go ahead and grab our playback range and bring it all the way up to 48. Now, if you want, you can always change it to, let's say, 100 frames, but we're going to leave it at 48. So from there, we're going to be able to work. And another thing I just forgot to do, let's go ahead and set a key. We're going to have to come up here, select rendering objects, so we can select our camera, and we're going to go ahead and press S on its location. And this way, no matter what happens, we can always come back to this position on our camera. Sometimes you'll accidentally move this, and then your whole animation might be messed up because your camera's moved from where it was. But now it will always snap back to this position, even if you accidentally move it. So I'm going to deselect that again, and we're going to come in here and we're going to go over some basics. So let's start off by selecting our main control, and we're going to go ahead and select this on the first frame, and we're going to press S, and what that does is it sets a keyframe. It will go ahead, as you notice, all of these three rotates have now been made red, and that means that they've had a key set on them. These have not had a key set on them. So we can go press W, have our translate, and press S if we want. As we see, these turn red again, but I'm going to undo that and show you another way that we can do that. We can select all three of these, right click, and press key selected. That will do the exact same thing. And sometimes Maya doesn't want to listen to you. You can always come up here and go to animate and press set key as well. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and move ahead in the time frame to, let's say, let's go 12 frames. And we're going to go ahead and drag this up. And now you'll notice if we look into here, let's go ahead and press F, and that will make everything that we've selected up to the into our time frame. Everything will be fit into this frame. So we can see that we've got a curve that's going up here. So that's our graph editor. It's a simple graph of how our object is moving. And if we select this and drag it across, we can see that it's going up. Let's go ahead and come back over the frame 24, and let's go over here and press 0. So now, if we press F over here, we can see we have a nice little curve. Now we've got this, let's go ahead and look at what these buttons do, because these are very important. A lot of times we're going to start off in blocking. We're going to go ahead and select everything, and we're going to press step tangents. Now what this does is it will hold your key all the way until a new key has been selected. There's no curves, anything done. It's almost as if it's just one frame being held for all those frames. And when we are blocking, this is important because we don't want the computer to be doing too much work for us. So it'll create very floaty animation, and it just doesn't look right. You can almost think of it as, in traditional animation, each one of these frames would be hand drawn. So right now, all we've drawn is frame 1, 12, and 24. We don't want the computer to be drawing everything else. But we can come through here, and this is our stepped tangent. We can have flat tangents, which they don't work for what we're doing right now. It appears that they're just spline, but they're really not. Linear tangents can be useful later on, or for creating a straight move from here to there. There's no attempted spacing or anything like that. It just simply goes up and goes down. So we can come over here and we can press auto tangent, which will spline everything and will give us this nice smooth look. So let's go ahead and, you know what, I want to go ahead and move this down to 24. Let's move this entire animation down to 24 frames. It'll just be a nice simple animation. And we can go ahead and let's playblast and call this ball bounce. And let's playblast this. And what this will do is it will create a simple movie of your animation. So let's go ahead and watch it. It doesn't seem, let's put it on a loop. It doesn't seem to be real lifelike. It's just kind of going up and down. It is smooth, but it's not what we're wanting. So let's get rid of that. And also, just for our purpose, let's remove our curves and surfaces, grid. Let's remove manipulator. Okay, so actually I do want the grid back so we can see a floor. Let's go ahead and select this again. So we're going to be looking at gravity. How does this affect our ball? Well, we know that it's going to be most effective at the bottom and least effective at the top. So we're going to want near 12. It's going to be kind of suspended here as it loses its momentum before it begins to rush back down. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise this up a little bit more on both sides. And we can now see that we have these graphs here. And I'm just going to grab them and kind of bring them up a little bit. And then at the bottom, around 3, yeah, let's say 3. Actually, let's bring about 5. Actually, no, let's go over here. This will be an easier area to begin with. Look at. We know that this is going to come down a lot faster. So we're going to go at the 20, and we're going to bring this almost all the way down. So we can see that this rushes down much faster. And let's go ahead and at 5, kind of try to do the exact same thing. But we're not liking how this is looking, so we're going to go ahead and press Shift, holding down Shift, and then click on this. Now we're going to see that our keyframe has been highlighted red. And we can shift this keyframe over, just one. So let's go ahead and let's playblast that by right-clicking, going playblast, and let's see how that looks. Now we can see that if we move this, it kind of goes up and it seems to rest the bum, but we don't actually like how this is looking because it would appear to be going up and then it almost slows down as it hits the bum, but we don't want that. We want it to hit with an impact. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come over here and we are going to press the the break tangents. And what we can do here is we can now adjust this one curve so that it will appear to, well, jump. It will have a very hard hitting curve going up and down. We're going to do it on the same over here. And now we can get this to look a lot more realistic. We now have a much more lifelike kind of movement here. You can already see just by the curve itself. So let's go ahead and now playblast that and let's see how it looks. So already this is starting to look a little bit better, but we're not really feeling the weight. It's a little off and it's a little bit too evenly timed. So let's go ahead and let's try and pull this back to 3 this over to about 21. Let's go ahead and press, oh sorry, we don't want to do that. That doesn't, that'll just destroy what we just did. So let's try and even this out a little bit more, and as we see, this now is floating a lot more at the top. It spends a lot longer time up high than it does at the bottom. That's what we want. But when we get to the bottom, when this hits, we need it to feel like it's really collapsing, which is where we're going to now go and add a second layer. So we're going to go ahead and click this other controller. We're going to go ahead to our squash and stretch, and at about 20, oh sorry, let's go ahead and key this for each of our spots. So we've got a keyframe at 1, 3, 10, 12, 14, 21, and 24. So let's go ahead and key that, each one of those here, by pressing S, each one. And we also want to do that with this. So we're going to key our selected. Excuse me. Oops, over here. Don't know what I'm thinking. I'm not sure what I'm thinking. Okay, anyways, so we want to move this over there. No, come on, we want to leave it here. I believe. Just double check that real quick. Yeah, that's where we want to leave it. So now we've got this, what are we going to do with this? Well, when we impact, we want to squash this. Now, the moment of impact, it's going to be normal. But right at 22, let's go ahead and grab this squash stretch, and let's pull this down. Now, as we can see, this is pretty squashed, but it's not. The whole thing is squashing. It's not going down to its one pivot point. Some rigs will have it built in so that you can do that, and it will just squash down from its one pivot point. But right now, we can't seem to do that. So we're going to go ahead and now grab our main controller. We're going to bring this down right to where it meets the bottom. So now we've got a nice little bouncing look to it. And now that we're at 3, I want to go ahead and I want to create another stretch as it reacts to its initial squash. And I'm going to bring this up once again to meet the top. And why don't we go ahead and see how this looks for a playblast. And already we're seeing that this looks a lot better. And I mean, you're going to want to spend a lot more time finessing this, but this is the essentials to a ball bounce. It just looks like it's kind of bouncing. It's got its own little character to it. You can always make it have a little bit more wobble, a little bit more bounce, fluctuation, whatever you want. But before we go over, let's go ahead and add one last little bit. So let's say we want this to have a full rotation. So what I want to do is, by the time it gets down to 21, actually, yeah, so from 3, I'm going to go ahead and make sure this rotate. Let's have it rotate on the Z axis. So we're going to be able to see it real well doing that. So we're going to start at 3. This is right when it leaves. And we're going to go over to 21, which is right when it lands. We're going to type in 360 degrees. So at the moment, it's going to appear that it's not moving. But if we look at it, well, you can see that it's actually rotating. So let's go ahead and playblast that. And if we go ahead and loop that, we've now got a nice little rotating ball bounce. And that is one of these, basically the essentials to animation. It's your simple ball bounce. Don't be afraid to go ahead and try all sorts of other things. Obviously, the ball's got a lot of things that it can do. It can roll, it can do more bouncing. Every object's got its own different style of bounce. Obviously, this looks like a little rubber ball. A bowling ball is not going to bounce the same as this, obviously. It's got a lot more weight to it. Really just experiment and look at different reference. So I hope this has been helpful. Great little introduction if you've never animated before. Please subscribe to Blooming Earth Studios and shoot me any questions or comments you may have or any requests. Thank you.